What are some of the most terrifying creatures to ever live on this planet? Please like and subscribe to support this channel. Emerald jewel wasp. It reproduces by stinging a cockroach and paralyzing it with its venom. As the cockroach goes mad from the venom in its brain, the wasp then bites off the end of its antennas. It then leads the half-paralyzed brain-dead cockroach along by its antenna, using it as a lead, towards its burrow. Inside the burrow it lays eggs inside the roach, then buries it alive. While in its tomb the larva will hatch from within the cockroach and over a period of a week feed off of the, still alive, cockroach. Finally they will eat its organs, finishing it off, before growing up to go repeat the process themselves. We lucked out. Polar bears evolved to live mostly away from society, sans a couple remote places. They would easily ruin a grizzly bear, a lion, a tiger, really any other dominant predator's day. They are the only active species among bears known to actively seek out and kill humans. They have huge territories they cover and they can smell you from far away. Basically, polar bears are the most evolved, up the food chain predators Earth has to offer, unless you count humans. People joke about Aussie animals all wanting to kill you, but 50,000 years ago it was way worse. There was this marsupial lion thing, like a big cat, bear, dog that moved silently, had huge grasping claws, a bite that could crush your skull, and it could climb. Asterisk, once it decided to eat you, you were dinner. And it's the tamest of the lost Aussie predators. There was a 6-meter land crocodile, which is exactly what it sounds like, bad for family picnics, and an equally large lizard related to Komodo dragons and piranhas that could probably run as fast as a car, could almost certainly climb. Basically, if it saw you before you saw it, goodbye. We still have a few giant birds, like the emu and its far more murderous cousin, the cassowary, but back then we had several more, including a 2-meter-high predator. So basically a cassowary, velociraptor thing. Then the first Australians arrived and wiped them all out, armed with basically sharp sticks. Most badass people that ever lived emo, and I thank the gods they got here first every day. Human beings are scary. We breathe a corrosive gas, drink one of the most potent solvents. Our preferred method of hunting was persistence hunting, where we chased animals until their bodies simply gave up and died. We can eat just about anything we find, which means that we don't need to stop for food when chasing our prey. If we can't find food, that's fine. Our body will simply begin to eat itself so that we don't have to stop chasing our prey. We walk upright, we sweat, we don't have much body hair, which allows us to radiate away our body heat. This means that excessive time or extreme environment won't stop our hunts. If the animal fights back against us, we can take massive damage to our extremities and lose half our blood and still live. Our entire existence is owed to persistence, endurance, and determination. When we put ourselves to a task, it gets done, period. And this instinct is still affecting us today. 332 BC. Alexander the Great hits a stalemate with the fortified island city of Tyre. Instead of going back defeated, he builds a kilometer-long bridge in order to raise the city. 49 BC. Caesar, after defeating the Gauls and invading Britain, turns a political fight into a civil war by invading Italy with only a single legion. He eventually becomes dictator, starting a world superpower whose engineering feats are only recently being broken. 1804 AD. A charismatic French general declares himself emperor and sets off to conquer much of mainland Europe. He is captured, exiled, and then escapes. The soldiers sent to recapture him instead lay down their arms and join him. 1961 AD. One man decides that we will go to the moon, despite much of the technology to do so not even existing yet. Just 8 years later, 2 humans stand on the surface of the moon and look back upon the Earth. 200 years ago, we didn't have railroads. 100 years ago, we didn't have airplanes. 50 years ago, we didn't have spaceflight. 25 years ago we didn't have the internet. We've already inherited the Earth and soon we will inherit the stars, and anyone or anything that stands in our way will be eliminated one way or another. There's an aquatic parasite called Simathoa exigua. It enters fish through their gills and finds its way into their mouth, where it bites onto blood vessels on the fish's tongue and causes the tongue to die and fall off. The parasite then latches itself onto the tongue stub where it lives permanently, feeding off the fish blood, and the fish lives the remainder of its life essentially using the Simathoa as a creepy alien-like replacement for its tongue. Here are some pictures for your enjoyment. Humboldt squid are pretty terrifying emo. Relatively large squid that move quickly in large swarms of over 1,000 individuals, have suckers, sharp teeth, and beaks, known to have attacked humans, and can signal each other by flashing different colors. Imagine being out in the ocean and suddenly a huge group of intelligent, alien-looking and potentially aggressive creatures emerge out of the depths. No thanks. Conus sp. *, more commonly known as the cone snail. The thing as a snail isn't particularly scary. They are small and often ignored. The problem is most people don't know that a snail can pack as big of a punch as some of this genus do. Although their peak diversity is limited to the Indo-Pacific and S. African Cape, they have a fairly global distribution in essentially all tropical and subtropical marine systems. They have a lot of venom, and a stab from some of these guys could actually be fatal to a person. That said, watching them stab and slurp up a fish is awesome. Parasitic worm that turns snails into disco zombies to attract birds. The parasite then reproduces in the bird's guts. It's called *leucochloridium, and it's a parasitic worm that invades a snail's eye stalks, where it pulsates to imitate a caterpillar. In biology circles, this is known as aggressive mimicry, an organism pretending to be another to lure prey or get itself eaten. The worm then mind controls its host out into the open for hungry birds to pluck out its eyes. The worm breeds in the bird's guts, releasing its eggs in the bird's feces, which are happily eaten up by another snail to complete the whole bizarre life cycle. Komodo dragons. They are equally cool as hell as they are terrifyingly smart. I was watching a nature documentary once, and this group of 3 or 4 Komodo dragons ganged up on an ox or water buffalo, but they didn't have enough strength to fully take it down. So what did they do? They followed it around for the next few weeks as the venom from their bites slowly killed it, and then it finally died and they had a fucking feast. Dolphins. Okay, hear me out. Dolphins are usually seen as friendly and kind, smart aquatic mammals, but what people tend to forget is how too human they are. For starters, they're the only second species that have sex for fun. First are humans, obviously. You've probably seen some internet videos of a dolphin humping some woman. Haha, very funny. Until you dive, no pun intended, deeper. If a female dolphin refuses to mate, the male dolphin would bring his band of horny fuckers into a rape gangbang, raping the female until she dies. Female dolphins aren't any better either. They will literally kill their babies just to have sex. In conclusion, sharks are scary looking, but at least they're not dolphins. The now extinct short-faced bear always fascinated me. I believe it is the largest known mammalian carnivore, land-dwelling, that ever existed. It's like an upsized grizzly, but with proportionally longer legs, which means it could run at high speed and long distances to catch a meal. It wasn't just a sprinter, it went the distance. When standing, a large individual could approach 12 feet, compared to the grizzly's 8-foot standing height. This gives you an idea of this bear's dimensions. Closing square bracket. Cordyceps. The mind control fungi. There's said to be millions of species, each specializing in a different invertebrate. In each invertebrate they take over the brain and direct it to find somewhere high up, whereupon the fruiting body bursts from the bug's head and releases spores to infect more. Many creatures, especially ants, that are regularly affected, learn to recognize the behavior of mind-controlled brethren and will carry them, against their will, hundreds of meters away from a nest to avoid killing the colony. Well, not creatures, but they are living. Cordyceps. Humans are rarely original when it comes to thinking up terrifying things. The zombie apocalypse is no exception. I give you, cordyceps, a form of fungus that has a most curious method of reproduction. You see, it's no normal fungus. Their spores infect more mobile living creatures than themselves. For example, there is a form of cordyceps, they're all species-oriented, that infects ants. Early symptoms of an infection are erratic behavior and disorientation. This is such a potential scourge, that the ants have evolved to actually evict the infected ant and take it as far away from the colony as possible. If they didn't, the next phase would almost certainly wipe the colony out. Now we get into the real fucking nightmare. Remember that disorientation? Oh yes, now it's full-blown mind control by the cordyceps fungus. This mind control will force the ant to climb up and seek higher ground before the fungus sprouts its mushroom, killing the ant in the process. After it sprouts to full length, it explodes in spores, and if the other ants didn't carry the infected far enough away, it begins anew in the next individuals. eventually ending in mass graveyards of ant carcasses at the tops of blades of grass with mushrooms growing out of their heads. Nightmare fuel. I know this is cliché, but honestly, humans, as plentiful as have found good ones. But there's a damned awful amount that ruin my idea of the rest of the species. But even aside from humans who completely depraved of empathy, the sheer amount of ignorance you discover from individuals you encounter in day-to-day life is mind-boggling. And the truth of the matter is that I don't know how some people get through day-to-day lives. It's honestly too much to type. But no other species is willing to befriend you, pat you on the back, gain your trust, eat food with you, smile and laugh with you, create a community with you, and then not even break a sweat when they destroy everything you've helped to build. Then finding out their reason is far from rational. Humans, despite being rather vulnerable to attacks from other animals and lacking any natural defensive or offensive measures such as claws, fangs, or a thick hide, humans are extremely resilient and have used their intelligence to dominate the planet. A lion could easily maul and kill a human if they were both natural matched. A human, however, could set up a trap and use weapons to take out the lion without getting hurt. Humans also use tools to take out beasts much larger than themselves on a regular basis. The best way to stop them? Using another human. They are social creatures and will work together for a goal, whether good or bad. Some of them are not social and will actively avoid others. Some members of the species, though rare, will actively seek other members of the species to murder them and in even rare cases, cannibalize them. Rats. I live in Brooklyn, New York in a hoodish neighborhood where the janitor never cleans the place. It's disgusting. I was just 6 when I would take a step and frickin' rats ran past by out of nowhere. I hate that. It's so unexpected. I would make a tantrum walking around my neighborhood, especially dark. One day, I was all by myself in the living room watching Nick Jr. when I hear crackling noise come from the closet. I thought it was a ghost, but then suddenly a rat's head pops from under the closet's door. I screamed. Till that day, more and more rats were everywhere. I couldn't sleep at night, I couldn't eat of disgust, and I couldn't stay alone. My apartment was small, so there weren't any space for them to hide but the closet. I remember rats running or flinching at every step. It was getting so aggravating. I was getting tired of it. Luckily, the exterminator killed all the rats and covered the hole from the closet with newspaper and cement. The thing is that, I became so traumatized. I started to see them everywhere. I heard a story once about a crocodile that was alive so long it began feeding on humans. For those of you who don't know, the only thing stopping crocodiles from living thousands of years is their size. The older they get, the bigger. They die of starvation because they are too big and slow to catch ample food. Except humans are easy targets, and enough food. I believe it killed 12 to 20 people before finally getting hunted down and shot. In the Jurassic period, the Dankosaurus was by the most terrifying creature that ever lived on this planet. There aren't many fossils, but in 1990 the paleontologist Kyle Munster uncovered a series of skeletons at different ages which showed how the dinosaur changed through different ages, and it was equally terrifying through different age brackets. As a baby it is essentially an on-land octopus, with spikes on each of their 17 legs, and as an adult its torso grew to a whopping 17 by 25 meters. Its fangs could crush a car, and its legs spread out reached a length of 50 meters. Fortunately, it was a vegetarian, however it is presumed that it was naturally aggressive. Munster, who uncovered the fossil, was haunted by the sight of it and eventually convinced his financiers to keep it out of public sight, which caused an uproar in the scientific community at the time. Today the fossil's whereabouts are still the subject of massive speculation. From the positioning of the fossils, they were able to determine some social characteristics of the species, which suggested that they had very little consideration for personal space, an affinity towards incessant bullying, and communicated at a volume that was intentionally irritating to their community. They were also thought to have a system of communication through drawings and carvings similar in a sense to how we would communicate on modern social media, but used it primarily as a means to gain sympathy from others, rather than a utility for survival.